Hi comic book fans, and welcome to another suddenlycomics.com video. And today we've got another episode in my The Comic Detective series, and we have got a little cracker here today. It's arrived in the post today. I managed to get this on eBay at a very reasonable price. One of the things that I do when I search on eBay is I look for newly listed. And the other day I happened to go onto newly listed, and this had been listed literally less than an hour after I had looked at it. It was on a buy it now price, and I snapped it up. And it arrived in the post today. Why is this special? Well, it's special for more than one reason. Okay, so first off, when did this get published? So this is Amazing Stories of Suspense number 26 from Alan Class. I think Amazing Stories of Suspense started publishing in late 1963. So I think this is probably 1965. Okay. Yeah. So 1965. It's a comic of its age. It's typical of Alan Class comics. It's square bound, and we've got some quite bad degradation of the border up here. We've got a cover crease. Let's have a look at the back. The back actually will clean up a bit, so some of this dirt on the back here I will be able to get rid of. It's actually lying quite flat. I suspect this may already have been pressed actually. I think this has already been pressed because it's lying very flat. Okay, so what have we got inside of here? Well, it is packed with Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and some special stuff. Okay, so first off, this cover is Jack Kirby, and the first story we've got in here, the ghost rode a roller coaster. This is it says Kirby and Ayres down there, so this is Jack Kirby and Dick Ayres. Story probably by Stan Lee. He was definitely the editor, I would suspect. Some great sort of horror artwork. Yeow, it's alive. The pages are loose here. As we get into it, it will be more secure. Right. There we go. So that's the first story. What happened in the Wax Museum? This is Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. And this is all from sort of Marvel magazine, Marvel comics from around 1962. I mean, there's a classic. This is classic Steve Ditko. I mean, if you get used to Steve Ditko artwork, then, you can spot him a mile away. The long wait. Ozzaro the Mighty, again it's Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. I'm trying to be gentle with this. Right, okay. Now then, comic book aficionados. Man in the Mummy Case comes from one of the most famous comics of all time. Okay, are there any of you out there who can tell me in which comic this was originally printed? Okay, I'm going to tell you. This was originally printed in Amazing Fantasy 15. Yep, this This was one of the backup stories in the first ever appearance of Spider-Man. Okay, so here we are, probably a couple of years. I think when did Amazing Fantasy 15 come out? 63. I think we're in 65 here. So 2 years after Amazing Fantasy 15 comes out, Alan Class reprints not Spider-Man, but Man in the Mummy case. So here you go. If you've never had a chance, if you've never got hold of your copy of Amazing Fantasy 15 and you haven't read it, you can get it. You can get it in here. Brilliant. But there's more. There is more. Another Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, Earth is Off Limits. I mean, the artwork's great on these. Another one, Time Was, Stan Lee, plot, Larry Lieber story, inking Sol Brodsky. There we go, Sol Brodsky. I'm not that familiar with Sol Brodsky, but it's not bad. Okay. There's another one here. The Bell Ringer. Right, this too was from Amazing Fantasy 15. This was another of the backup stories to the first Spider-Man story in Amazing Fantasy 15. There you go. Half of the comic, half of Amazing Fantasy 15 is in here. Unfortunately, it's not the half that contains Spider-Man. There we go. Nice story here. And there we have it. Also, in here, we have the first ever Dr.Strange story from Strange Tales 110, is reprinted here in Amazing Stories of Suspense 26. So not only have you got the non-Spider-Man bits of Amazing Fantasy 15, we have got the Doctor Strange bits from Strange Tales 110. There we go. Doctor Strange, Master of Black Magic. I suspect, and anybody out there correct me if they know otherwise, but I think this is the first ever reprint of the first appearance of Doctor Strange. So originally came out, again, I think that came out in 63. So this is 65, so it's only a couple of years after the original. You know, and again, classic Stan Lee, classic Steve Ditko artwork here on Doctor Strange. Brilliant. There you go. The first Doctor Strange. There are Martians Among Us, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko again. I mean, these two were really prolific at this point in time. You know, the early 60s, early to mid 60s. Just, you know, Steve Ditko must have been worked at a phenomenal speed. Again, Bronson's brain. Story Stan Lee, art Steve Ditko. I mean, this is one of the great things about these Alan Class comics. You get about 9 or 10 different stories, you know, and quite often you'll get an absolute cracker like this that's got classic Jack Kirby or Steve Ditko artwork. This art is by Paul Reinman. I've seen this guy a few times before. He must have been one of the regulars working out of the Marvel office at the time. So there we go. If you see this and somebody's selling it for $5, grab it. It will be cheaper than buying Amazing Fantasy 15 or Strange Tales 110, and it's only 2 years later. I think possibly the first reprint of those classic comics. So a real little catch for my collection, and it was not expensive. Okay, comic book fans, enough said.